Hello. The following presentation aims to provide a bit of context and detail around the recently launched VCSE Flexible Support Fund. The information you're going to hear throughout this presentation should provide enough detail for potential applicants to decide if this is the fund that they wish to apply for. If there are any questions you still have at the end of this presentation, please view the FAQ document that will be available from the Funding Opportunity webpage, or contact one of the team using the contact details at the end of the session. Before we start going over the funding opportunity, I just wanted to take some time to provide a little bit of context around the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer and the progress that has been made since its launch back in April last year. The Youth Guarantee policy is part of the government's Get Britain Working strategy. It was first announced back in autumn of 2024. Since that announcement, 8 Youth Guarantee Trailblazers were announced across England with the aim of testing how a national youth guarantee could meet regional needs. The West of England is one of these Trailblazer areas, and we continue to work closely with other Trailblazers across England to share learnings and experience. Youth Guarantee Trailblazers were each awarded up to £5 million each to provide support for 18 to 21-year-olds to access employment educational training. The policy also allows for support for 16 to 17-year-olds who are either NEET, so not in employment educational training, or at risk of becoming NEET. This 12-month programme of activity kicked off back in April last year. In the summer, we were delighted to hear that the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer funding had been extended for a further 12 months, allowing the Trailblazers to run through to March 2027. Each of the 8 Youth Guarantee Trailblazers have adopted very different delivery plans, although with some areas of similarity. In the West of England, we chose to take an approach that mixed direct support interventions to 3 very specific cohorts, representing some of the biggest challenges and barriers that young people in our region face, represented here by the green tiles, coupled with projects that are focused on systems change, represented by the red and pink tiles. Looking at our projects of direct interventions, so our Rural Access programme, led by Bath and North East Somerset Council, supports young people from more rural areas to access support and employment opportunities. This might be supporting with transport or introductions to local employers, or providing opportunities to speak with a work coach about their aspirations and challenges. Through this project, we've seen rounds of mock interviews, roadshow events in specific rural communities, and great work placements. Moving on to our locality-based project, led by Bristol City Council. This focuses on the South Bristol area and supports young people with facing multiple barriers to employment. But through a structured 4-week employability programme followed by 2-week work tasters and support from work coaches, we've seen many of these young people progress into paid employment or re-engage with education. And finally, our project that focuses specifically on young people with special educational needs. Led by South Gloucestershire Council, this project provides one-to-one work coach support alongside 4-week employability training, followed by an 8-week work placement. Also included in this project is online maths and English provision that is successfully enabling these young people to achieve the maths and English qualifications that some of them never felt they would be able to achieve. Looking at our systems change and systems leadership projects, in the top left-hand corner here we have our skills support and systems mapping project. Through the Skills Connect platform, we've worked to gather information about support services for young people across the region. We've added an additional 240 services to the Skills Connect directory and built a page specifically for young people. This starts to provide us with a self-serve function to the Youth Guarantee and a route to self-refer for those young people who feel they need support from those 3 projects in green. We then move on to our data projects, represented by the more pink tiles here. Working hard to develop a regional system that will provide enhanced risk of NEET indicators based on data from a range of sources, whilst also tracking young people post Key Stage 5. This regional data system will enable better targeting of early interventions to reduce the number of young people becoming NEET, whilst also enabling the tracking of young people who don't go on to positive destinations post Key Stage 5. This will enable us to know where to direct support in the future. And finally, in the top right-hand corner, our employer engagement project. We aim through this project to better coordinate employer engagement across the region. Employers are key to the Youth Guarantee, but the ask on employers is increasing. As part of this programme, we support employers to engage with the Youth Guarantee, helping to shape work placements, create job opportunities and develop recruitment processes and practices that are accessible and attractive to young people. The reason behind this mixed approach is to enable intensive bespoke support for some of our most disadvantaged young people, whilst building systems and infrastructure to ensure that all young people in the region are able to find support services to help them progress into positive destinations. Since the Youth Guarantee Trailblazers started back in April last year, our Unitary Authority delivery partners across the region have worked at extraordinary pace to mobilise and launch programmes that support these three cohorts of young people and address some of the key challenges faced by them when accessing employment, education or training. Since the project started taking referrals back in May or June, over 427 young people have been engaged in conversations to find the right support for them. Over 292 young people have started the support offered through the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer projects. And of those 292, 99 have gone on to take part in work placements and work tasters, and over 39 have then gone on into paid employment, including some into apprenticeships. Given the relatively short time and the level of disadvantage that these young people are facing, being able to see them entering into employment is fantastic, and some of the stories we're hearing back from the project teams about the impact that the projects are having on self-esteem, confidence and mental well-being is just amazing, and we look forward to lots more of these as we head into year 2. When the extension to Youth Guarantee Trailblazers was announced back in the summer, the funders, the Department for Work and Pensions, gave clear direction that we should continue delivering support that is broadly consistent with our Year 1 plans to maintain service continuity and enable robust evaluation, but with that flexibility to increase or add activity for Year 2. So moving into Year 2. Through the West of England Youth Guarantee, we wanted to increase the number of young people supported through the project and establish 2 new work streams in addition to continuing the work already established in Year 1. These 2 new activities include a project that will be led by North Somerset Council to support young care leavers in their area, and the second activity to work directly with the VCSE sector, who we know provide key support services to young people across the West of England. You may have attended a workshop we held last summer where some key messages were clear, and these were that the sector should be more involved in the design of support under the Youth Guarantee. We should be using the expertise of the sector in direct delivery of support. That there's a need to build stronger relationships between the combined and local authorities to work closer together strategically with the VCSE sector. That without funding, the current ecosystem of support services that we've built and inputted into the Skills Connect platform might not be available for young people to access. And also how short-term funding sometimes doesn't allow for longer-term planning and reduces the effectiveness of support services. The final 2 points were particularly interesting and led us to further conversations and agreement that in fact a longer-term 3-year funding opportunity should be available to ensure support services are available for young people across the region and to strengthen the VCSE sector overall. So this brings us to why you're watching this session, the launch of a 3-year flexible support fund, specifically for the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. By way of introduction, this grant will be offered by the West of England Combined Authority and is open exclusively to the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. The total fund available over 3 years is £2.1 million and is intended to fund activity from April 2026 through to March 2029. There will be a review point at the end of Year 2 to review performance and impact of funded projects, with the 3rd year of funding dependent on the outcome of this. In line with the Youth Guarantee policy, this funding will support interventions for young people who are aged between 18 and 21. The funding can also support 16 and 17-year-olds who are not in educational training or who are at risk of disengaging from education. The core focus, and therefore the majority of participants, should fall under the 18 to 21-year-old bracket to take into account that across our region we already have funded NEET prevention projects that we would not look to duplicate or destabilise. Again, in line with the parameters of the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer, projects should aim to support participants into employment, education or training. We recognise that other outcomes are also important and we'll address this later on in the presentation. Projects must be delivered in the West of England with the aim of reducing NEET numbers, and just for clarity, this means eligible areas include Bath and North East Somerset, Bristol, South Gloucestershire and North Somerset. We welcome applications from single organisations, but recognise that due to funding requirements, some smaller organisations might feel that they're unable to apply for this fund, and we therefore encourage consortia applications, which will require one organisation to take the lead. From the outset, we encourage potential applicants to collaborate and work together to ensure that provision complements and doesn't duplicate what already exists. We'll touch on this a little more later in the presentation. In year one of the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer, we started work on developing a more coordinated approach to employer engagement, recognising that multiple asks are often made on employers. We expect successful applicants to work closely with our established employer engagement team to create opportunities for participants. Through year one, we've also been developing the Skills Connector platform to engage more young people to find the support they need. As I mentioned earlier, we've added more than 240 support services to the directory and are working on further development to enable young people to better access opportunities across the region. Successful applicants will be expected to work alongside us and this service to develop efficiencies and streamline referral processes. And finally, with regards to marketing, successful applicants will be provided with clear marketing guidelines that must be followed as a condition of this funding. The comms team at the Combined Authority will coordinate regional marketing activity, but you might wish to include budget for marketing in your project costings for more targeted marketing and promotional activity. The main aim of this fund, in line with the Youth Guarantee, is to support NEET young people aged 18 to 21 into employment, education or training. Applicants should outline in their applications the support needed by young people who are NEET and the barriers that their proposed provision will address. Provision may include, but isn't limited to, wraparound support for young people with complex needs, mentoring and skills development, support to access transport, housing or other practical needs. And the bottom 2 points here are particularly important and represent the overarching aim of the fund, and that's support to prepare for and enter employment or support to prepare for and engage with education or training. In preparing for work, funded organisations are expected to work with young people to identify their employment interests and prepare them to take up these opportunities. And finally, in this section, applicants must demonstrate a track record of supporting young people with varying needs and the ability to deliver personalised, flexible support that adapts as a young person's needs change over time. In response to feedback from the sector, this funding call intentionally enables applicants to design the service that they intend to deliver to meet the aims described earlier in this session. However, taking learnings from activity in year one, we would like to see applications that include medium to high intensity support. This will also become more clear when we move on to look at the data collection requirements. The table on this slide outlines what this could look like, but these lists are intended to distinguish between the two and are by no means exhaustive or have to be included in all applications. We have mentioned throughout that the overarching aim of the Youth Guarantee is to support young people into employment, education or training. and this should be the aim of applications. However, we realise that this hard outcome is often built on the achievement of softer outcomes, and in some cases is simply not achievable. For this reason, the table on the slide lists some further outcomes that are also recognised through this funding opportunity. Some of these are listed in this table, but again, these are examples rather than an exhaustive list. We would expect that around 40% of participants achieve a hard outcome from the funded support. Applicants should list in their application the number of NEET young people aged 18 to 21 who it is anticipated to engage in and support. Please state in your application what the minimum level of engagement would look like. Note that the application form will ask for outputs to be broken down by the number of young people to be engaged, the number to be supported at medium intensity, the number to be supported at high intensity, the number of young people expected to progress into employment, and the number of young people expected to progress into educational training. As mentioned on the previous slide, the funding supports young people to progress towards sustainable positive outcomes, including employment, educational training. Outcomes are categorised as soft, intermediate or hard to reflect both personal development and measurable progression. This fund is intended to support priority groups, and as we've previously mentioned, the main priority group is 18 to 21-year-olds who are not currently in employment, education or training, and further 16, 17-year-olds who are NEET or at risk of becoming NEET. Applications are encouraged that further support some of the following subgroups: care experienced young people with mental health or wellbeing challenges, young people with low qualifications or special educational needs, young carers or young parents, housing insecure or homeless young people who've been involved in the criminal justice system, socio-economically disadvantaged young people who face multiple structural barriers, and young people with protected characteristics under the Equality Act 2010. Again, this list isn't exhaustive, and other groups and cohorts not listed in this slide may also be supported through the funding. However, priority groups will carry greater weighting in the application review and scoring process. Applications should provide evidence of need for specific groups proposed. The fund aims to engage and support in total 1,100 young people over the 3-year period. We touched on collaboration earlier in this presentation, and the Combined Authority encourages applications from consortia to strengthen the coordination of services. One of the aims of the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer is better coordination of services, and for this reason, applications should complement, not duplicate, existing services. This includes services provided through Year 1 of the Youth Guarantee Trailblazer and other funded support services across the region. That being said, we welcome applications that clearly demonstrate how they can add value to existing provision and make use of existing referral pathways. We're not necessarily expecting applications to involve brand new models of support. We accept that this funding can be used to build capacity, value and stability into models that have already been tried and tested. We've included a slide here that outlines some of the existing services funded through the Combined Authority which might be useful in developing your application. But again, please also consider other services such as those currently offered through the job centres and their current and developing youth offer. Moving on to look at the funding in more detail. The total funding available is up to £2.1 million across the 3 years, £700,000 per year. The first year will be funded through the Government's Youth Guarantee Trailblazer, with the second and third years funded by the West of England Combined Authority. The minimum grant funding value is set at £100,000 per year, or £300,000 over the 3 years. As mentioned before, single or consortia applications are very welcome. If intending to submit a consortia application, please note that a lead partner or organisation will be required and will be expected to compile an assurance check paperwork for all organisations in the consortia to ensure accuracy and completeness of submission to the MCA. It's also important to note that this funding does allow for match funding. The funding can be combined with other funding streams to create a larger budget for the proposal to be delivered. If you do intend to take this approach, it's the responsibility of you, the applicant, to ensure that any match funding proposed to be included in your application has terms which allow for that to be paired with other funding. As we move on to eligible costs, the fund provides a good degree of flexibility, and eligible costs can include direct participant costs such as bursaries, training and employment support, travel costs, costs towards clothing and equipment for interviews or work placements, or costs associated with digital and IT equipment and software. It can also include staffing costs for those who are directly involved in the delivery of the project. We will require staff and roles to be detailed in your application. Staff costs can include salary, national insurance contributions, employer pension contributions and overheads, but not exceeding 20%. This fund can also cover project mobilisation and setup costs, and following feedback from the sector, we're able through this fund to make up to 10% of the total grant, not exceeding £10,000, available as an upfront payment to cover these setup costs. The fund can also cover annual auditing fees. As standard with funding of this nature, grants that we provide in excess of £100,000 will require submission of an annual financial audit, so please bear this in mind when costing your project. An evaluation. The Combined Authority will be conducting a regional evaluation, but you may also wish to conduct project evaluations, the costs of which can be covered through this fund. I just wanted to take a little time to touch on the claims process and reporting requirements, not everyone's favourite subject. As I touched on just now, an advance payment option is available to support with the quick mobilisation of the project. The advance payment amount will depend on the total amount of grant funding being sought, but will not exceed £10,000. Once mobilised, the Youth Guarantee Project team from the Combined Authority will meet with you on a monthly basis. This is intended as a supportive, informal meeting to update on progress and a chance to flag any specific challenges, risks, or need for support. We will also require a monthly submission of participant data, although we will also have an established system that applicants will have access to where this data can be reported on a live, ongoing basis. Claims are to be made quarterly in arrears and will include an overall project highlight report alongside a financial report. Although an annual financial audit is required, our Youth Guarantee funding requires the Combined Authority to check a sample of costs incurred by delivery partners on a regular basis. Therefore, on a quarterly basis, the project team will ask you for evidence for a sample of costs claimed. Evidence is typically an invoice accompanied by a redacted bank statement. If this seems at all complicated, please don't be put off. Our team will support and work with you to make this as simple as possible, particularly for that first claim made. That being said, please ensure that you build in resource within your project design to meet these reporting requirements. As mentioned previously, due to the level of funding, it's likely that we'll also require an annual audit report, and as standard, we will have an annual review of all projects to identify what's worked well, where there might be challenges, and how they can be overcome. I touched on the data in the monthly reporting requirement, and it's important for us to be completely transparent about the level of data collection required. As a requirement of the funding from the DWP, the following participant data should be collected. In the left-hand column is the data that's expected for all participants contacted, and the column on the right contains additional data that's required for all participants that go on to receive support. Again, on this slide, this is participant data that is required for all participants starting support. The level of data collection required is significant, so please ensure that this is built into your project design. We recognise that this level of data is difficult to gather through one single interaction with a young person, which is why we anticipate support that is medium to high intensity in nature. As I mentioned previously, the Combined Authority has developed a system that all successful applicants will have access to, where this information can be inputted and maintained, and we will conduct training sessions at the project mobilisation stage to ensure you're familiar with this. Before we move on to the application timeline and next steps, I just wanted to mention our due diligence process. Because we are managing public funds, there are certain due diligence checks that we have to perform. At application stage, you'll be asked to supply the last 3 years of full filed accounts, along with declarations that you hold public liability insurance, professional indemnity insurance, a business continuity plan, and do not exceed subsidy control limits. If any of this criteria presents a barrier for your organisation to apply for these funds, please do consider the consortia approach. To conclude, we'll now run through the application process and timeline. The funding call for the VCSE Flexible Support Fund will open on Monday the 2nd of March. Applications should be submitted by 11:59 on Monday the 23rd of March. We will then enter a period of assessment and moderation. Any submission of clarification questions will take place between the 2nd and the 9th of April, and we will aim to issue funding award notifications on either the 20th and 21st of April. So in summary, we have up to 3 years of funding available from the DWP and the Combined Authority. The total funding allocation is £2.1 million, £700,000 over 3 years. This funding allows for organisations to design and deliver projects focused on supporting the needs of NEET young people aged 18 to 21 or 16 to 17-year-olds who are NEET or at risk of becoming NEET. Project design and delivery are intentionally flexible, allowing applicants to propose models informed by what you know works best. Longer-term funding, we hope, aims to support sustained engagement, strengthen partnerships, and improvements to long-term outcomes. So what are the next steps? You can download the application form and application guidance documents from the URL on the screen now. On this webpage, you'll also find an FAQ document which will be updated throughout the duration of the funding call. If you have any questions that are not covered in this presentation or in the FAQ document, please email the team using the email address on the screen now. Comprehensive information outlining the funding opportunity is in the guidance document, which you should read thoroughly before submitting your application. And once completed, please return your funding application by 11:59 p.m. on Monday the 23rd of March. I hope this presentation has been useful, and we look forward to receiving your application. Thank you.